Good morning, everyone. I'm Jolene Ivey. I'm the County Council person representing District 5, and we're going to start on time because we have a tight schedule and we really respect everyone's time involved. So thank you for coming. This is a workshop to learn about county grants and how to grow your nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits do so much for our county and they could do so much more if they just had the tools. I really want to thank the Department of Housing and Community Development who gave me the idea to host this. They came to me, we're briefing our office about the CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, and they shared that they review with the applicants what items they're missing and ways to improve their applications for those that don't receive funds so they know what to do for the next cycle. As we approach the beginning of fiscal year 2022, I want to make sure that your organization knows what opportunities are available to you so you can continue the work you're doing to serve the residents of Prince George's County. A special thank you to all my speakers who are here today and the county agencies you have joined me as well, and my chief of staff, Monica Young, my office manager, Melissa Day, who put this event together. The speakers today, Tiffany Turner Allen, Executive Director of Nonprofit Prince George's County, Diana Léon Brown, the Director of Strategic Partnerships for the County Executive's Office, Patricia Isaac, CDBG Program Manager, Prince George's County Department of Housing and Community Development, Aspasia Kispolia, Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, Tamika Gavin, Deputy Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, Alexis Yeoman of DHCD, who assisted with organizing this event, and Andrea Anderson from the Redevelopment Authority. Before we get started, I want to go over some housekeeping. So after each presentation, we'll have a short Q&A, but what I'd like you to do is place your questions in the chat, and my staff will compile them for each speaker and will read the questions aloud. We want to make sure that the questions that are answered on this forum are ones that are of general interest to everyone. And the more specific questions, we're going to make sure we get to the speakers who can answer your specific question offline. And also, if you could keep in mind, this is being taped. It's being recorded right now, and we're going to make this tape available on my YouTube channel as well as on my County Council Facebook page. So our first speaker is Tiffany Turner Allen, the Executive Director of Nonprofit Prince George's County. She was named Executive Director of Nonprofit Prince George's County in 2020. And she has a diverse background and brings years of experience across a myriad of nonprofit causes, including racial equity, human trafficking, domestic violence, and healthcare. She'll be speaking about nonprofit Prince George's and how to grow your nonprofit. And we'll have, a few minutes of Q&A. And then we'll go to the community partnership grants, CPG, the local development grant, and the new COVID-19 nonprofit relief grant. Diana Léon Brown, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships with the County Executive's Office. So that tells you what the first two will be about. And I'd like to throw it to Tiffany now for the next about 20-30 minutes. Tiffany?
Thank you so much, Council Member Ivey. I want to just say thank you for, allowing us this opportunity to come into this space and to be able to share more about who we are as an organization, as a resource and a coalition. So I'm going to share my screen. And can you see this? Perfect. Okay, thank you. So we are Nonprofit Prince George's County. We are the Health and Human Services Coalition of the county. That's our legal name. We've been doing business as Nonprofit Prince George's County. And how I kind of like to frame this conversation is that as a coalition, we're responding to now, like we recognize there's a lot of work to do in the immediate, but we're also reimagining to next. So as we move forward as an organization, there's a lot of rebranding, there's some new resources, some new programs that we have in place. So just kind of sharing with everybody, this is our new logo. We are a newly rebranded organization. And for those people that are curious, like, well, you know, what does this mean? We actually, our colors that we have in our logo are daffodil yellow, which represent the county flower, and eastern bluebird blue, which is the county bird. So just so people know what the symbolic nature is of this. So our mission is to equip Prince George's County nonprofits to better serve our community. And we do so with a number of key support systems. We want to mobilize our nonprofit community as a collective. And so that's extremely important because we are stronger together. And so really working in that space to build collaboration and synergy there, and responding to those that are most marginalized and vulnerable in our communities. And then also serving as a central location for the nonprofit sector. That has been something that we definitely needed to work on. And I think that over the last, a little over last year, partnering with key stakeholders, finding out what the needs are, what the gaps have been, that's been a place that we've been moving more towards, is being able to serve as more of that central location. And then also making sure that we're able to develop and enhance the services and the needs of our residents with a very culturally responsive approach. So our vision is currently evolving. And so I'll share that with you once we have that final and in place. But we are grounded in these core values of racial equity being our first one, service, collaboration, and I cannot reinforce that again, like collaboration is so integral to the success of the nonprofits in our community. And then integrity, just really understanding that we have some uncompromising moral values and ethical principles that we operate with as an organization. So our key areas of focus of how we operate as a nonprofit is we focus on advocating, collaborating, and educating. And so our programming that we build all kind of fall within one of those core categories. What we strive to do is we are really striving to lift the voice of Prince George's County nonprofit organizations, in addition to the residents that we serve. And then also providing a supportive community. And then lastly, making sure that we're engaging our community to understand what those needs are and what the gaps are. And our community consists of not only the residents and the nonprofits, but also those key stakeholders. So our elected officials, those key partners in the different county executive, the different offices and departments. So when we kind of jump into this space, a lot of people keep hearing them say, we want to go back to normal. And I don't want to use the term back to normal. I like to say that we're going to be better than before, because normal was not working for so many people in our community, in particular in Prince George's County. So I want to just be very mindful as we kind of move forward with that. So it's so important that we recognize, as Council Member Ivey mentioned, that the nonprofits are essential. We were essential before COVID happened, but the nonprofit community has shown up in such an amazing way and filled the gaps and provided services where county could not, where government could not. And so again, looking at how we are our key stakeholders and how we partner with other people. The other thing I want to be able to stress to the nonprofit sector is that we have to be able to look at county funding as a source of funding and not just the source of funding. I know that has oftentimes been a conversation that we've had about relying on only one source, but as we look to grow and develop more tools and resources, really being able to expand and look for other opportunities outside of just county funds. So whether they're foundations, whether they're state funds, and even ultimately being able to apply for some federal dollars, and looking at some other like fee-for-service models that some organizations can develop, and some non-traditional ways of generating additional revenue. The other thing that we're working to do is really get people to understand the funding sources. And so the great thing is that I think on this call, we have two of our key partners on the call with the Director of Strategic Partnerships and the Program Manager of the CDBG program, but really understanding like what the requirements are for some of the grants that we apply for. So when you have a cost reimbursable grant, what does that mean? And so being very clear about, are we prepared and what are some of the requirements as we kind of embark into some of these spaces. Also, I think that laying a foundation, and I go back to the importance of how we develop relationship with each other and create collaboration. So there are some places where you'll continue to hear me say we're stronger together. So how do we come together to write a grant application? Like, are there some key partners that can come together to make the application stronger? And then also looking at, innovation and thinking out the box. And I think that this is something that the nonprofits have executed perfectly. Over this time of COVID, and just continuing to be in that space of how do we, create some innovative programming, how do we meet the needs of the community. So understanding, we know we have our mission and our vision, but sometimes we've been required to pivot, and some of us have been providing some services that we otherwise would not have provided prior to the pandemic. The other piece is about sharing feedback. It is very critical and important to our stakeholders for feedback to be shared. There are so many ways that we're able to grow and expand. And I think that we're all looking at how we can improve and have a better county and support the residents of the county. But sharing that feedback with our funders, and then also if there's some apprehension about sharing that feedback with the funders, being able to share that feedback even with us as a coalition, because then we will take that feedback back and we will absolutely make sure that the message gets conveyed back to our key stakeholders about some of the challenges. Again, so I stress again the fact that there is strength in numbers, and so us operating as a coalition is so important, because then we can come to the table and say we have 160 organizations that we've involved and we've engaged, and they're aware of this, and we can move forward around different initiatives that we need to embark upon. And then I think the other piece that I've noticed a lot in this last year and a half is the importance of being a bridge builder. And so, and I say that because sometimes we run into some spaces where that's not necessarily the case, but relationships are important. And how do we build those bridges? And how do we engage with each other in a very respectful manner, where we still share our point, get our point across, and be clear about it. But at the same time, how do we build those bridges and not look to burn them? And then I think the other piece that I really want to stress with our nonprofits is that we know that Prince George's County in particular has suffered the brunt of this pandemic, not just in the state, but in the Washington metropolitan region. And so there are a lot of people that have talked about, the chronic health conditions that have existed in our community. And we, as people who are providing the services, are not immune to that. I'll even share my own personal story that the COVID has seen me, I've walked away with 43 additional pounds since the start of the pandemic. So that means that my health was put on the back burner. That has not been my priority. And that's something that we have to, develop some programming and support so that we're not always leading to burnout and that we're taking care of ourselves, but then also understand that healing is something that, as a majority melanated community, and that's the term that I use, Prince George's County, we have a significant number of traumas that people have experienced, whether it's historical trauma, whether it's generational trauma. So how do we also look at some healing mechanisms? Because that's going to be important as we move forward in growing and building the nonprofit sector. So again, I like to talk about how do we understand the differences of Prince George's County. We're a very unique place. And so again, I like to call us a majority melanated community. We are not the same, right? There's so many nuances in this community. And so oftentimes you'll hear people talk about Prince George's County from one standpoint, but there's not a singular story. So there is such a wide variety of people and experiences and what people bring to the table. And that's what the nonprofit sector has done very well, is being able to understand the history, the experiences, and the needs of the various communities that are being served in Prince George's County. So when you hear the kind of the moniker about the wealthiest county for, African-American people, on the other side, there's still great disparity. And there's some people that live in the county that has not been the reality, right? Again, going back to the importance of collaboration and trust building. This is something that in every space when I'm meeting with, funders, potential funders for the nonprofit community, really, I'm hearing that from them, that they're really pushing for the nonprofit sector to find ways to collaborate with one another. And how do we start working on, again, building trust? Nonprofits and key stakeholders. So that's the piece I've seen where it's not a versus, it's an and type of approach. So the nonprofit sector, how do we work with our elected officials? So, being in spaces with them, coming and showing up to events, being able to share with them some of the challenges and unique experiences of the nonprofits that we're running and the needs that we're seeing in community, and also with other key stakeholders, which are going to be our funders and other businesses. So I think that it's really a way for us to look at how do we broaden and expand how we view the nonprofit sector, so that people don't look at, and I'm not gonna say people don't look at, so that we can really redefine how the nonprofit sector is seen. So we shouldn't be seen as a charitable cause. We should really be looked at as an investment in the community. An investment in the nonprofit sector is an investment into our communities. And how do you tell your story? So these are some of the things that we're working to share, especially through our workshop series. How do you tell your story? And then the importance of data and measuring impact. That's also been something that we've heard continuously across so many stakeholders, is that we need some other mechanisms in place to be able to measure that impact, and what does that data look like? So oftentimes, I know a lot of the nonprofits, we have these conversations in private. People feel like they're walking on eggshells. They don't know what to say when. And so I am a firm believer in being bold, and then also being respectful. So when I go into space, I don't walk on eggshells, but I do tell people exactly what the thought process, what is going on with the nonprofit sector. So I encourage that. And so as we're working with funders and not just county funds and county grants, but foundations, we're talking to them about being deliberate and intentional in how they fund and how they communicate with the nonprofit sector, looking at how they can revamp applications and the reporting process. And we've seen some foundations actually significantly pivot and create some other models of reporting and applications. Looking at how do you define what is evidence-based? Who's determining what is evidence-based in our communities? And that's extremely important, especially when we have communities that are Black and Latinx led or Black and Latinx centered in a community that again is majority melanated. So who is making these determinations of what is considered evidence-based? How do we go back to measuring that impact? Because that's the piece that when we go back to our county partners, they want to be able to tell that story. Like, they need that information and that data. And also what we've been doing with funders is talking to them about why are they funding just enough, right? So how do we look at expanding that funding pool and resources, especially from the foundation perspective? And then also just considering our sources. So a lot of times, we look externally, but I think that internally, as if we pool our resources and our thought leadership and our energy, we'll find that we're the subject matter experts. And if we craft a very strategic plan, it is very helpful in how we go back to potential funders. And they'll let us know what they can do and what they can't do, and where there's some room for negotiation and flexibility. And lastly, we're really pushing funders to help support, capacity building of our nonprofits and not just programs. So that's going to be very helpful for organizations to be able to grow to scale, and then being, committed to understanding that, again, there's not one singular story. So some of our current initiatives that we have, some people may be familiar with the fact that we used to have this series called Ideas and Infos, luncheons. And so we've changed the name. They're now called I2 Lunch and Learns. We used to hold 8 of them a year. We've now expanded that to where we're holding 12 of them a year. So we have the workshops and 2 deep dive trainings. So it's a great space to really develop some of the skills. And so we have all new presenters this next year. I brought in new facilitators this past year. We have looked at how do we support survivors? How do we write a budget? We have a workshop, a deep dive workshop coming up next month on program development and evaluation techniques. So we have a wide array of programming that we're offering. We are getting ready to launch our advisory work group called Community Collaborators. And so that will be open up to our members to submit an application, very simple, just saying that they want to be a part. And so this is a way for us to meet on a regular basis And again, keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community across all different sectors of nonprofits, in addition to taking that information and identifying what are some of the policy issues that we need to push forward and support as we move forward as a collective. And then I'm happy to announce that we're opening up a nonprofit resource center. And so it's, if anybody is familiar with where we're currently located, just down in the same building down the hall, we're opening up a space that will have 3 tiers of space for nonprofits. So some will be mailboxes, some will be virtual space, and then some dedicated office space that will be opening in August and or September. And so, and then again, there's membership. So I just encourage you to get involved in one of these different initiatives in some way, just to know that we are a resource and we are creating and creating some programming and maintaining programming that can be helpful and beneficial to the nonprofit sector. And so I like to say, it's been my own personal model, is when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. And so my hope and my belief in my work is that we are going to be able to really change how we operate as a sector, but how we're also viewed and seen as a sector. And I tell people that my why is up in the corner in the right-hand corner. That's my son, my 2-year-old. And so he is my why. So this work that I do, although this is my professional work, it is personal, because I am raising my son in this county and I truly love it. And so it is very personal. And so we are made up of a team of amazing staff and consultants, and key stakeholders, our members, our allies and partners. And so every day we're looking to grow, and we're constantly being in spaces just like this one right now to have this conversation. So we just ask you to, reach out if you have a question, if there's something that you want to get involved with, if you want to learn more about some upcoming workshops and trainings or the advisory work group. These are all options that are available to our sector. And then we have our new website, which will be launching September 1st. And you can contact us on all of these various social media platforms. And then I just shared our contact phone number and then the email address if you have a specific question. That is it for me. Did I make it under time, council member?
You were amazing. Thank you so much, Tiffany. So far, I've only seen one question in the chat, and I don't think it's directed at Tiffany. So we'll bring up that question as we move along. And if there are no further questions for Tiffany, I'm going to go to our next speaker. So the Community Partnership Grants, CPG, the Local Development Grant, and the new COVID-19 Nonprofit Relief Grant. So we're going to hear about that from Diana Léon Brown. She's the Director of Strategic Partnerships from the County Executive's Office. She currently serves as the Director of Strategic Partnerships, and in this role, she leads and manages all the cross-sector partnerships on behalf of County Executive Angela Alsho-Brooks. Ms. Brown also oversees $10 million of grants for the county's nonprofits and works with numerous foundations and philanthropists to direct funds to qualified organizations that have passed the due diligence requirements of her department. So she'll be talking about that too. To strengthen the nonprofit sector, Diana has created and conducted numerous certified training programs and workshops in partnership with 10 universities for nonprofit executives to strengthen their ability to meet a national standard of financial competency and business acumen. Ms. Brown believes that at the core of a thriving economy rides a strong nonprofit sector. So Ms. Brown, we kick it off to you.
Councilwoman, thank you so much, Jolene, for hosting this and organizing this and including us. This is wonderful. I love working with you professionally, and I love you personally. You're just a model to the community, so thank you. I am So again, I'm Diana, and I serve as a Director of Strategic Partnerships for the County Executive's Office. So our department is really a brand new department with this administration. And so we essentially manage the relationships as it pertains to resources for the county on behalf of the County Executive's Office. And so I work with business foundations and try to get resources into the county, develop relationships, inform them about what our nonprofit organizations are doing. But I'm going to shut the door. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize. I'm at my mother's house, so there's a little bit of a distraction. So anyway, and so the real goal is, my office is new to this administration, so it didn't exist before. And so the county executive's vision was really to have a central place where we were really understanding what resources were available regionally, nationally, to bring into the county and to leverage those resources, and to also bring attention to the good work that our nonprofits and organizations here were doing outside. So that's kind of like the intention of our department. And so with COVID, we also managed the grants, 3 grants. So we do the community partnership grant, which a lot of you are very familiar with. We've just inherited the local development grant. Before, that wasn't within my purview, but now it's part of our management portfolio, and the new nonprofit COVID relief grant, which I'll speak about because I know there's a lot of questions about that, and we're very excited about it. The other thing that we do, we also provide support for our nonprofit sector. We really wanted to have a place in the government where we could serve as a liaison, understand what some of the concerns were, and relay those concerns or opportunities to our government agencies, to other philanthropists, to the various foundations. We work with economic development. So businesses are coming into the county. We talk to them about what nonprofits are in the areas and try to gain their support. And then lastly, we also organize various nonprofit events and training. So a big part of the objective for my department is to really make sure that once this administration is over, we have left a strong foundation from which our nonprofits can really take it to the next level. So one of the big objectives for me was to make sure that our nonprofits have access to regional resources, federal resources, philanthropy, and that we know that the organizations outside of Prince George's County know what we are doing. And so I've spent a lot of time meeting with various nonprofit members, learning about our organizations, and sharing that information. Can we go to the next slide? So COVID really created a very interesting problem. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Because with COVID, we had to pretty much shift gears because we had to provide responses and relief to the immediate need. And at the front line of all of that was our nonprofit sector. So whether you're talking about housing, medical, food, advocacy, all of that really at the front is a nonprofit sector. And so I really have to commend how our nonprofit community really stepped up to the gate and really worked together to provide resources and services in a really unprecedented time. And as difficult and as challenging as COVID was, it really afforded us an opportunity to strengthen our collaborations, work better, and also inform the community about the work that we were doing. So there's a list here of some of the money that was raised. I like to say strategic partnerships, like a Tiffany's box. We're kind of small and mighty. So we have a team of 3 internally. Sheila Curry's on my team, and Jemiah Swinton, who is new to the team, but wonderful. And we reached out to our nonprofit sectors. We have a lot of nonprofits that reached out to us. We went to visit, did a lot of ground visits to understand what was happening. So for one example, we had a nonprofit that as soon as COVID hit, it was in an area that is like a food desert. And they have a small food bank. And there was a line down the street for services, and there were people coming in from DC. And so it went from just not just to bringing funding to the nonprofits, but finding porta potties and getting medical attentions, because we had to respond in the way that we weren't accustomed to responding. When I worked with some of our philanthropy, I really directed a lot of money directly. I asked them to just give directly to the nonprofits that were calling us who had, immediate needs, so that it didn't get bogged down in the bureaucracy of paperwork and all of that. So we directed quite a few funds. We worked very closely with the community foundation. We opened a couple of accounts there where we were able to have some of our philanthropists invest money in an account there. Some of the businesses invested money in an account there, but that was coming through our office. And the reason we did that is we had to find a way to create an incentive for businesses and individuals to donate and get the tax deduction. So if you give directly to the government, they don't qualify for the tax deduction. So working with the partnership was definitely a win-win. It created an incentive for our business community and our philanthropic community to donate and help pitch in. And it also gave us the resources that we needed to disperse. So the $3 million nonprofit COVID relief fund is a fund that we were able to get from the state. And when I tell you we worked hard to get that fund, we worked really hard to get that fund. Can we go to the next page, please? And so we, I'll start at the top. So the community partnership grants, that application has closed. So that's a $1.8 million grant that we do every year. And it's fluctuated from 1.5 to 2 million, depending on the year and the budget. And those grants are funded through Prince George's County residents' taxpayer dollars. So there's very strict protocol that we have to adhere to make sure that those funds are used, invested responsibly, and we have to report back how every dollar of that has been used. So one question I get all the time is, why are the restrictions so strict? Why do we have so many requirements? It's really to protect our nonprofit sector and to hold the county accountable for where the dollars are going. So I was in a conversation the other day, someone said to me that they felt like the nonprofits were being penalized because the hoops were so high. And that's definitely not the intention at all. Different grants have different requirements, and we have a responsibility, a fiduciary duty to really make sure that we're meeting those. But that said, we do work with our nonprofits. So there are situations where nonprofits are in a particular situation, or they fall in a separate category, and we deal with those nonprofits on a case-by-case basis. So so if there's ever any question about our grant and how that should be approached or this concern, we will definitely work with our nonprofits. Sheila is fantastic with sitting down with our nonprofits and really collecting information. I sit down and collect information, and now we have Jemiah, so we have a new person on the team, and we will work with our nonprofits to not only get county dollars, but also direct them to other resources. So I also write letters of recommendation for our county nonprofits that work with us so that they can qualify for outside funding. So we really do everything we can to support, to make sure that our nonprofits are getting those dollars. The local development council grant falls under a whole different category. So that grant was created with money from the MGM development. It has a board that oversees it and an evaluation process. We just handle the integrity of the process and checks and balances, but it has a separate criteria. The nonprofits that apply for that grant, who can qualify for that grant, have to be providing services within a 3-mile radius of the MGM development. And if they are not, if the organization is not physically located in that 3-mile radius, that's okay, as long as they can demonstrate that they are providing services within that 3-mile radius. So that grant just closed. I think we're getting ready to disperse the payments now. Under each of these categories, you'll see an email address and a link. The email address is a dedicated email for questions about those particular grants. 4 people monitor that email address. And I can see everything that comes in. I strongly encourage you to use those emails, because when we get questions specifically to our separate email boxes, they really do sometimes get lost and they don't always get part of that communication stream. You can copy us, but also use these email addresses for questions. If you have a particular situation, if you want to know the different dates. The websites the links are there. We are in the process of updating our website, which is very, very, very much needed. You know, we are government, so we are a little bit slow, but we are working really hard to bring that up to speed. And I think one thing that I didn't realize, it didn't occur to us when we first came, mostly because of the COVID, is my department didn't exist before. So there really isn't a web page for strategic partnerships. So all of our programs are kind of scattered throughout our website. So we are working now to create a strategic partner landing page that will have all of the grants that we provide, all of the resources, all of our partners. And we're also putting together a nonprofit directory. So nonprofits who have received a grant from us within the last 5 years can be listed on there. If you want to be listed, you'll be receiving an email, or you can click on the link when it's up. So if you want to be listed in the directory, it's going to be a digital directory, because we want to have a landing page and a directory if our residents want to know where to go for teen mental health, that they understand, have some information about what's available and what resources and who the county is supporting.
Hey, Diana, before you go further, would you mind giving us a quick what the deadlines are for each of these? So people have.
Sure. Yep. So the community partnership grants will open up again in October. We just closed. The checks just went out for the last grant. So that will be opening up in the fall. And that's pretty standard how it happens every year. So we try to open up the portal October, November, and we try to close off the application process by February. And the checks usually get paid out sometime between April and June. Last year was a bit of a challenge since everybody was working from home, and a lot of the previous processes for the county were paper-based. So it was a lot slower. But again, COVID provided us with an opportunity. We're able to put things online now. So one thing you'll see with the new application for the nonprofit relief grant, it's an online portal application. So we're hoping that'll set the stage for our future grants and be a lot easier to deal with. The local development grant opened in February and closed in May. So that's usually their board has a little bit of discretion, actually has a lot of discretion over the timing. I don't really have total control over that, but that's typically when it opens. So that will open again next February. And if you send an email to those respective email addresses, we will put you on the email list. So you'll also be part of the email blast that goes out to notify. And we also ask, if you do that, to register yourself and another person in the organization. Sometimes people come and go, emails change. So we want to have a couple of people in each organization in our database so that we can ensure that somebody's getting the emails. We also list them on our press releases and our social media pages. Now, the COVID relief grant is brand new. So this is opening up July 7th. We had to send out a press release announcing it per state requirements. We can't open the portal until 2 weeks after it's been announced. We will be sending out another notification because we're going to conduct a workshop so that we can provide detailed information on how to apply, what the questions will be, and help our nonprofits apply. So you can apply for up to $100,000 worth of funding. It could be program specific. It can be used for general operating. You just have to demonstrate what you're using it for and what the needs, and explain how you were affected by COVID. And that will look different for everybody, okay? And so this grant is a lot more, well, a little less restrictive than the other two grants because it's a COVID relief grant. So what we want to have documented is really what you're planning to use the funding for and why you need it. And that will definitely look different. There's going to be an area in the portal where our nonprofits can write down the narrative and do the explanation. And as long as you really are in good standing, and you filed your taxes and your 990s or whatever you're required to do, you should qualify for that grant. We will give out that grant until the money runs out. I will note, if you apply for $100,000, that may not necessarily you'll get $100,000 because the evaluators have to look. So it's just like the community partnership grants. You can apply for up to 100, but the reason for that is when we have to report back to the state where the money went, how it was used, and they reserve the right to audit. So we want to do. It's really important to me. This has been a real personal mission, that everything we do in the county is documented and really has the highest integrity, because I really want, when we're going to the state, talking to the federal government, speaking to the foundation, I can really show them the work that we're doing. And that's what's really helped us get the money that we needed, during COVID. Sorry, the questions are popping up. I'm trying not to read them, but you know.
Well, please,
So,
please answer them if you can, as you see. I
okay.
saw a couple of come up for you.
Okay. And so, so I like to keep as much data as possible. But that said, we do understand there are extenuating circumstances, unique situations, and we will take those. We will sit down with the organizations, just bring it to our attention. Sheila or Jemiah will schedule a call with you. We'll talk through it and we'll work through to make sure that you qualify. So I know there's a lot of concern and a lot of angst about the requirements, and they're so strict, but we have to have those there. But we do work with our nonprofits. We are here to really help you and make sure that you get what you deserve and what you need. Because I've seen firsthand that, the work that our nonprofit sector has done, especially this last year, and it's just been unbelievable. The deadline for the COVID nonprofit relief, it's going to close late August. So there's plenty of time. Once the 2 weeks is up, the portal will open. My team is putting together the workshop now. So probably by the end of next week, we'll have the date. That information will go out. If we need to do an additional workshop, we will do that as well. We're working on a PowerPoint. It's the questions will be similar to what you've seen with the partnership, community partnership grants, but there'll actually be less restrictions. So, like, for example, our community partnership grants need to be program specific. They're not used for general operating. This can be used for general operating. It's a lot broader. So there's a lot more wiggle room, so to speak, to explain and fit in people with different needs. And the other thing you should know about the nonprofit relief grant is, and this is a state requirement, the funds need to be used by December 31st. So I think there's ways you can use them for retroactive, expenses from last year. But you'll have to demonstrate that you've used them up by December 31st. I tried to extend that, but they were pretty firm on that. But I think I think our nonprofits have so many needs. I don't think that's really going to be an issue. If it is a concern or an issue, you contact us and we will talk you through that whole procedure and what you need to submit to us. If there's like, for example, with our community partnership grants last year, when our nonprofits applied for them, since they were program specific, then everything shut down. There were a number of nonprofits that contacted us and said, well, we're no longer providing tutoring services after school, and so we can't use it for this program. Can we redirect the fund? Can we repurpose the funds? The answer is yes, absolutely. We just need to know and approve what you're going to switch the funds to. And really, again, that is so that we can have a record of where the funds are going. So when we're asked, it doesn't look like there's anything shady or that we're hiding anything. We want to just have the information. So we will work with organization if something comes up and it needs to change. I'm going to open the questions because they're popping up and I want to see what people are asking. I think I'm doing this right.
I was kind of scrolling through them as you were.
Oh, can you ask? Okay.
Sure. So I can help you out a little bit. And it's that people generally want to know, like for the one that's about to open, the COVID nonprofit relief grant, if you get your application in early, are you in a better position to receive the grant? I know you said it closes at the end of August, but sometimes it seems like the early bird gets the worm. It works or no?
Well, let me tell you, my personal answer, I'm very type A. So I get things done early just to get them done early. But we will look at every single grant up until it closes, whatever that closing date. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's going to be late August.
And
so
how much money are we talking?
It's 3 million. The pot is 3 million, and our organizations can apply for up to 100,000.
What do you think? I know it depends on how many apply, you know, what the demand is. I do know that that matters quite a bit, but you could kind of give us an idea what you think the range is going to be, because I know that
I think it's, yeah, I see what your question is. I think it's going to really be based relevant to your operating budget from the previous year. So if you're an organization that spends $50,000 a year, I don't think you'll qualify for $100,000. You may qualify for up to 50,000, something like that. And there's some parameters that I'm not looking at, but there is an algorithm that we'll look at. So it's going to range similar to that. But if you're like a multi-million-dollar organization and you're providing actual services in the county, and you were really frontline medical services, food distribution, I see those organizations qualifying for the full 100 immediately. But again, a smaller organization whose previous budget was 50, let's say, stepped up last year and participated in the food distribution and their costs went up, they could qualify for 100. So we want to really look, we're trying not to be so rigid. We have an algorithm, but we also want to be fair, because we do understand that there are some situations that require some attention, and we want to make sure that they get the dollars. What I'm also looking at is for like the smaller organizations that are, mom and pop, they probably won't qualify for 100,000, but I want to make sure they get some funding too. So that might look like more like 10,000 or 5,000. So we'll start up organization. You have to be in existence. This is state requirements for 2 years. 2 years. And yeah, so that's the state requirement. So that we can't use it for micro loans. Right. But that leads me into what we're trying to do next year. So I also wanted to give a shout out to Tiffany. Tiffany and I have been working close. I'm really happy she's here. She's been a great partner. We talk almost, I think, at least once or twice a month to coordinate, because one of the things that is important for me is to make sure that what we're doing with this administration is in the nonprofit community. So when the administration changes, the work is still there, the resources are still there. So so it's been a really wonderful partnership between Tiffany Community Foundation, United Way, several other groups that we've worked with, the University of Maryland. I know I'm going to forget someone, I'm going to get into trouble, but I do love all of our partners. But it's been really nice to have these partners, because what we're trying to do is make sure that they get the resources they need to help our nonprofit community. So she and I have really talked. I had a meeting with the county executive about, 3 weeks ago. And I called Tiffany like at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, okay, here's what we're thinking. What are you seeing? Here's where we think we can prioritize some resources. So we are talking to one another, which I think is really, really great. And we're trying to coordinate the efforts. So we're trying to get information. We're trying to get information from all of our partners, because really the end goal is, I will come and go with the administration, but I really want what we do here to live on and strengthen this sector. And I think one of my big soapbox items has been really being a champion for our sector outside of the county, because I do agree with Tiffany. There's not enough. Our budget in the county is not large enough to provide the amount of resources that our nonprofits really need and deserve. There's just not enough money. It's just a mathematical issue. So we are, so I've gone to the state and advocated for more money. I talked to our philanthropy and asked them to invest. I'm showing them what we're doing. And so a lot of the data that we're collecting now and organizing, no one was really organizing or looking at it before. And so we are using it to really advocate for our sector. So this has been, a question came in. So this has been, we're trying to play the long game while dealing with the short game. We're looking at ways to increase capacity. So one of the recommendations I made to the county executive, like in the short term, we have some really great nonprofits doing great work. They're at capacity. So before we bring in new nonprofits, let's help them expand. If there's any money coming in, because the $3 million is just for relief, but there's other money coming in from different agencies that nonprofits qualify for, like the Health and Human Services and housing and blah, blah, blah. And so, but we are talking in terms of strategy, like which nonprofits partner with several organizations, several agencies, and how do we help them build capacities? How do we bring additional resources in? So there's a lot happening, but there's a great deal of attention in our sector. So I'm really excited about that. So I'll pause there. Are there any questions? Sure.
Two before we move on. One is that a couple of people just weren't sure about if the first come, first serve on that COVID relief grant or not. That's one concern.
Well, no, it won't get you the money quicker because the money can't go out until after it closes. So it's not like if you apply July 8th, you can get it July 9th, and that's not, no. So in that
regard, more likely to get it if you've applied on July 8th.
No, you will be more likely to get it if you qualify.
Okay.
So yeah.
And is the 2-year requirement this for the organization, for the nonprofit already being in existence? I know that that applies to the COVID relief. Does it apply to the other two?
Absolutely, yeah. So the it definitely applies. Yeah, that's the standard. Yeah. And that's in our bylaws. So there's nothing I can really do to change that. Oh, which I'm sorry, the other thing I was going to add is next year's budget. One thing I've been advocating for is to get some additional dollars so we can do some microloans. So if an organization is under 2 years, and we could do some smaller grants like 5,000, 10,000 to help them build but I have to get approval from that for the budget. And if we can get that done, that will provide an opportunity for those organizations that are under 2 years old.
Okay, and then there was one more question from, it said, during previous administrations, all community grant awards, who got it, for how much, for what, were quickly posted on the county website, but he can't find it now.
I will make sure. I think a lot of that was because of the COVID. I think that was just an oversight, but we do have the list. I'll make sure that it gets posted. Yeah, apologize for that.
Okay, and will you get in all of the applications, then review them, or review them as you go? And then I'm going to let you continue.
No, that's okay. I like to look at them. Well, see, with the COVID, with the community partnership grants and the LDC grants, I don't review it all. I don't see them until the evaluators have seen them and finance has seen them, because I just like the separation of that. I look at the scores and then we organize them by the scores and then we allocate the funds. So I don't look at that. This one, we have some evaluators, but I will be able to look at them. So I am going to go look, but the decision will be made through the algorithm with some input from our board. So we will look at them, but the decision will not be made until the end, till it closes.
Continue. Sorry to keep interrupting, but I want to make sure everybody hears what they need to hear.
Yeah, no, so that's it. So I think that with the new COVID relief fund, if there, once we get the workshop, I think the workshop will help clarify a lot of questions. And again, because it's pretty much, if you're in good standing and you meet certain requirements, it's like an automatic. It's what the evaluators are really going to look at is if the request matches what you're intending, what you're saying it for. So if you're using it $100,000, does it make sense? And there's going to be some discretion there with an algorithm to decide what percentage you get. But there's not a lot of other reasons you wouldn't qualify for that grant.
Okay, well, thank you, Diana. I believe you've covered everything and you've done it in great time, and I appreciate you. If you could, I don't know if you can, put in the chat the links to everything, because what went up on the screen wasn't clickable. So just so people,
okay.
I know we're going to send it out to everybody, but
okay, I'm going to try because I'm on my phone. So while the
never mind. Looks
talking,
like Monica looks like she's doing
Thank you, Monica. Okay, great.
You're welcome. And we'll send it out to everybody, so everyone will receive an email after today's presentation.
Wonderful. And then Jemiah's email is on there. She's my assistant, and she really is great about getting, if you want to get on my calendar, she's really the best way to go, because she'll do it immediately and it won't get lost. So even if you email me, copy her, because that'll make sure that it doesn't fall through the cracks. I appreciate everyone. Jolene, I appreciate you. Thank you to all the speakers,
Diana.
and thank you to our nonprofit members.
Great. And next we're going to hear from Patricia Isaac. She's the CDBG Program Manager from the Prince George's County Department of Housing and Community Development. It provides annual grants on a formula basis to entitled municipalities and nonprofit organizations. Giving the presentation is Patricia Isaac, the Program Manager. So Patricia, please take it away.
You know, I was so intrigued with the other presenter. I think it was wonderful. Thank you for having and inviting us to participate today. Can you see this? Wait, let me do
Yes,
this.
I can see it. Yes,
I'm trying to think what screen is on.
the screen, well, what you have up right now says Prince George's County Community Development Block Grant Workshop hosted by blah, blah, blah. So I
Yeah.
just need to go to the next screen.
Bear with me for one moment because my screen is using another, I have two screens.
Okay,
So my
Looks like you're good now. Just click down on the next one. I see it.
Okay, wonderful. Again, thank you for inviting me here today. And I just want to briefly say that we're so excited at the Department of Housing and Community Development under our new leadership, Auspicia Espolia, our director, and Tamika Ganavan, our deputy director. And again, my name is Patricia Isaac. And just for to share with everyone, I have over 27 years serving Prince George's County resident through county government. And community outreach is one of basically my whole career. But first, let me say about CDBG. Prince George's County is an entitlement community, and we receive federal funds from HUD, and the funds are appropriated by Congress annually, and it's distributed to Prince George's County and all entitlement communities on a formula basis. Some of the things that you may not know about the Community Development Block Grant, not only that it's federally funded, but under the goals of Title I of the Housing Community Development Act of 1974 as amended, the goals of the program is to provide decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanding economic development opportunities. There is a qualifying in order for your application to be eligible for consideration. You must meet the HUD's national objective. And that's basically serving 51% of residents in Prince George's County who are low, moderate income. So we have low, moderate income, limited clientele. And that's specifically for public service. Not specifically, it could be any other funding category, but is most likely in public service funding category. Low, moderate income job is also part of economic development. It's a part of job creation and job retention for low, moderate income persons. And low, moderate area income benefit primarily is used for construction projects for the municipalities, for street sidewalk improvement. And then there's low income housing. In that funding category is affordable housing, which low, moderate income residents will benefit by purchasing the single family housing or rental properties. The other thing that I think is really interesting about HUD is that their outcome-based performance. So in creating suitable living environment, and it relates to how the community benefit families and individuals by addressing the living environment and poor infrastructure, crime, literacy, that's public service primarily, and providing decent housing and economic development, which is you'll see a lot. The program, the Community Development Block Program, CDBG, is a reimbursable program. It's reimbursable. A subrecipient, if you're awarded funds, you automatically becomes a subrecipient of the federal funds. And so in the reimbursable, you're responsible for using your funds and then seeking reimbursement. And I'm trying to move fast because I do have a few slides. The application requirement. You've heard from the other speakers some of the qualifications that you need for the federal grant for CDBG. You must have a DUNS number, and it's easy, it's free. Just go to sam.gov. You can register on your profile in grants.gov. And also you must have an Internal Revenue Service certifying tax exempt for 501c3 status. For the state, you must be registered in the state and maintain a good standing. For the application, you'll need to provide your DUNS number, your organization 501c3 certification, your certificate of liability insurance, your list of board of directors, your board of director authorization to submit the application for funding, your articles of incorporation, your bylaws and related amendments, your financial statement or most recent audit, resume of your financial officer, and also complete and provide a conflict of interest statement. Our workshop is the notice of funding availability when we open up and we actually accept application, usually occurs September or October each year. So the CDBG application instructions are available on the date of the NOFA, but I want to pause that the day of the NOFA, we actually host a application proposal workshop where we actually walk through the application itself and then later the process. Please note the CDBG award recommendations are part of the DHCD fiscal year annual action plan. So if you're looking on our website, look for fiscal year 2022 annual action plan. And the plan contains all of our entitlement programs, home, ESG, and CDBG. The general timeline for the annual action plan submission, the county council is late winter and proceeds through the legislative process. This is a glance at our fiscal year 22 spending and our categories that we funded. The county receives approximately $5.1 million annually. So for fiscal year 22, we were able to fund $2 million for affordable housing and economic development, $400,000, and public facilities and infrastructure, $1 million, and public services, $744,000, and planning and admin, $1 million. But I will say this, for planning and admin and public service, they're capped. It's a statutory cap. Planning and admin is capped at 20% of the entire grant. So we can't go above that 20% cap. And the same for public service. Public service is capped at 15%, and we cannot go above that 15% cap. The other thing that I think is noteworthy is that we receive, again, annually 5.1, but at the end of the close of our application, we normally receive requests around $8.2 million. So public service, just to put a note, is the most competitive funding category that we have. Planning and admin, that's where our funding comes from for staff. So if you're thinking about applying, you can, but your competition is going to be with us as well, because that's where we get our funding. Now, the application criteria and process. So once the application deadline closed, the actual applications are reviewed just for eligibility, meaning it has to meet a national objective. Again, that's a statutory requirement. That's not ours, but it's HUD's requirement. So each proposal is evaluated at least 2 times and yield an average PAG score for each application. Additionally, that technical review eligibility to ensure compliance with one of the 3 national objectives, other technical elements, including the HUD matrix code, eligibility and proposed scope and budget line items, and being good in good standing with the state of Maryland. The following criteria are used for the PAG. And let me say the PAG is a proposal advisory group. And that proposal advisory group is made up of underwriters from various departments, RDA, the Redevelopment Authority, our Housing Development Division, and also members of the Community Planning and Development Division. So application, a maximum of 75 priority bonus points are provided. Applicants who demonstrate collaboration, which you heard earlier from Tiffany, collaboration means a lot. Provide a Section 3 plan. A Section 3 plan, if you are spending over $2,500, if you're in construction, we're asking that, well, it's mandatory because HUD now, the new rule goes into effect July 1, that you must solicit people from the impact area where the construction takes place, or that are low moderate income, to give them an opportunity for employment, or select or hire a Section 3 company, which is a small company that's in the community that hires low moderate income people. So, and then we talk about leveraging funds, matching funds to complete all components of the application. The total points in application can receive 200 points. But I have to note that priority points are also subject to change, and it's based on the county's priority. So the breakdown of the application, your project, your administrative capacity, your maximum point is 30. Your project budget is 25. Your performance measurements is 20. Your project budget should be realistic. And your administrative capacity is you having a board of director, and there's a separation of duties. Your accountant or your financial officer should be the last person that signs the check, not the executive director. So we look at that separation of duties. And your performance measure. How do you perform? How do you measure your project, your activity? What's your outcome? And the impact that it has on low, moderate income persons. That's 20 points. And readiness to proceed is so important. And that is in consideration as well. Your bonus points is that matching dollars again, that 20. And the collaboration is priority given to activities that are integrated with other community service projects. And just to give you an example, if you have a public service activity or program and you're working with school-aged children after school, if you have a MOU, a working relationship with the local school, you have a memorandum of understanding that the school will dedicate a space for you to have after-school program to continue with the education. That's a good point. Those are you would probably earn that 25%. It could be the rec center if they had a room for you, so the students after school can have an after-school class, whatever your activity is. And again, the Section 3 plan is that business and employment opportunities for low, moderate income persons and businesses. This would only be applicable for construction or rehabilitation project. And then lastly, the complete package submission is 5. And I just want to put another note that the priority points are subject to change based on the county's priorities. And so now that we have all the totals from all the PAG members, the totals are actually added up per category. So affordable housing, all the applications are totaled within the affordable housing category and then divided by the number of applicants. Once we get that number, it provides us with a threshold. With that threshold, the application is then placed in a tier system. So the tier 1, the application scored at or above the threshold and it met all the requirements. Tier 2, the application was considered eligible. It was in good standing, but it scored below the threshold. Also, let me note that tier 2 can still receive funding. We recommend it for funding. Tier 3, the applicant is either ineligible, the activity. You could have previous years open, and it all goes toward the total review of the application. Here's some homework for you. I have some resources listed here, and I think Council Member Ivey office will send you a copy of this. This is our DHCD website. Also, if you would like to receive the notice of funding availability, please register or subscribe to my PGC. Select everything that's housing, and you'll receive that notice of funding availability. And if you have any questions, please email us at cdbg.co.pg.md.us. Also, while you're at our website, please visit our plans and report. Our fiscal year 21-25 consolidated plan is and our annual action plan and the CAPER. They're all there. To understand the CDBG program and what some of the needs are here in Prince George's County, the consolidated plan is the document that you should read. This is the document we have to send every 5 years to HUD, outlining the profile of Prince George's County, the demographics, where the needs are, and then what we're recommending to resolve those needs, to eliminate them. Our annual action plan is our interim report that we send to HUD saying this is what we're going to do to address these concerns or these issues. And our CAPER is our report card that we have to submit every August, end of August. And it actually provides the data information, how many low, moderate income people were served that benefited, how many people benefit from road improvements, sidewalks, and it goes on. Did I stay within my time, Councilwoman?
You definitely did. And Pat, I appreciate that. I had a couple of questions here for you.
Great.
One is the 2-year requirement for the nonprofit to be in existence, is that a requirement for CDBG?
It's not so much a requirement, but it's a suggestion. And the reason why it's a suggestion is because of this. CDBG is a reimbursable program. So your organization would have to have some financial capacity to expend its own funds first and then to seek reimbursement. So it's more like recommended.
Okay. But they can apply.
They can apply.
They won't be kicked out just
No.
top because of that. Okay, and then another thing that I believe you may have already answered, but it's about sidewalks that are a problem in a particular community. If they're in an area that would qualify economically, is that something that could be addressed with CDBG funds?
Well, first, thank you for that question. Sidewalk and road improvement are most likely awarded to municipalities that are part of our cooperative agreement. So it depends on the location of this.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
if it's a-
municipalities, but if you're in an unincorporated area, you would not be able to get it through the homeowners association.
No, that's the county.
Yeah, I would
CDBG,
assume as
yeah.
well, since it's reimbursable, those are pretty expensive projects and it's not something that a homeowners association would necessarily have, upfront.
And not only that, but the homeowner association would be eligible because their roadways, streets are private. CDBG is public funds.
No, not necessarily, because you can be like Landover is unincorporated. They're not in a municipality.
Right,
They're
right,
in Prince George's County, if you want
right, right. So, yeah, they would have to go to,
Public
they would have to go to DPWT.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the frustration is that the county, as we've said earlier, money's tight.
Yep.
The sidewalk that needs to be replaced and should have been replaced 5 years ago might not get replaced yet, and that can be frustrating. So people are trying to find other ways to address it. So I understand why the question was asked.
Yeah.
Well,
Good question.
thank you, Pat. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add before we move on.
No, I think that's it. And I just want to say thank you for inviting. It
Yep.
was wonderful. And any questions, I'm still here.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. And now we're going to go forward to the community impact grants with the Redevelopment Authority. Andrea Anderson, please correct my pronunciation. I know the Andrea thing can drive people crazy, so I get that. But community impact grants are awarded to county civic neighborhood associations or community-based organizations that are incorporated as 501c3 entities. Community impact grants provide small capital grants to community-based organizations to help implement innovative projects within the county. And I'm looking forward to hearing this. And I did just want to mention that one thing that we hear a lot about is whether an organization is in good standing. A lot of times that's just that you haven't paid your fee that you have to pay to the state every year. And so just to make sure that's done will help save you some heartache at the end. So I don't know the other reasons that people get flagged for not being in good standing. That's a pretty common one and a pretty easy one to fix. So continue on. I'm looking forward to hearing about the Community Impact Grant Program. Andrea, are you there? I see your thing is up. Uh-oh, there you are. You're muted. There's the
I was. I've been on mute this whole time. So, but good morning, everyone. And thank you, Councilwoman Ivey, for including the Redevelopment Authority in this workshop. Our executive director is Stephen J. Paul, and I am Andrea Anderson. Yep, you got it. The RDA's Grants Management and Community Engagement Specialist. And you guys have received a lot of information today, and being mindful of that, my presentation will be short and sweet. So Councilwoman Ivey went through one of the main purposes of the Community Impact Grant, so I won't go through that again. But another purpose is to help strengthen communities while building organizational capacity. Next slide, please. In order to be eligible to receive a community impact grant, included is any civic, neighborhood association, or community-based organization that is an incorporated 501c3 located within the county. And also, as Councilwoman Ivey mentioned, you do have to be in good standing, and she thank you for giving us information that will help the nonprofits to understand what that means to be in good standing. The maximum grant amount for the community impact grants varies depending on the amount of funding that is approved by our Prince George's County Council. And all of the funds that we receive to administer community impact grants are provided through the CIP dollars, which is strictly county funds. We don't have any other financial support. So whatever the county council approves, that is the amount of money that we are able to give out. And the maximum grant awards have typically been up to $50,000 and sometimes $75,000. You know, the amount doesn't have to be that, it can be that in a maximum. And we, can also give, we also sometimes have to give less than that based on the number of applicants versus the amount of money that we actually have available to give. Next slide, please. This is a reimbursable grant, and the RDA will reimburse organizations for funds spent up to the maximum amount of the grant. And the grant award recipient must provide proof of payment in order to be reimbursed. And what that means is we would need to see, or actually let me qualify that and say our finance department requires that the organization, or we provide them with an invoice from the vendor, as well as a canceled check or proof of online payment that whatever you are requesting reimbursement for has actually been paid in advance. And then we submit that paperwork to our finance office, and they will then send you a check for that amount. Additional requirements for the grant are that previously funded applicants may reapply 2 years from the date of their approved application. And the new grant cannot be used for projects funded in the past through the CIG. And also, all prior CIG funds must be expended before submitting a new application. Next.
I have a quick question about that. Since it says it's reimbursable, how
Yes.
can you not have already expended the money before submitting a new application? You've already spent the money before you got it.
So some organizations, how do I say this? Some organizations don't actually use all of the money, for various reasons. I don't know.
But you've already spent the money. Like before I can even get the money, I have to show you've already spent the money.
So what that means is an organization gets a grant.
Mm-hmm.
We give them $50,000, and for whatever reason, they only use $25,000 of that $50,000. And I can't even begin to, well, let me try to give an example. Maybe they ran into some financial difficulties and they weren't able to get additional funds to complete whatever the project is. So they were only able to come up, and we were only able to reimburse them for half of the money that they spent. They would not be eligible to apply for another grant until and unless they had, had a conversation with us, and we determined, okay, they weren't, for whatever reason, they weren't able to expend all of the grant funds. But, we will, and there are exceptions that can be made. Let me say that, because the goal is to help nonprofits utilize all of the funds that we provide them. So that is the goal. The goal is not to, exclude anybody. So, if there are extenuating circumstances in an organization's financial ability or capacity, those things can be talked through.
Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Okay. Yeah, so next slide. Grant categories and uses. Neighborhood beautification. Oh, and let me say that all of the photos that I've used in the presentation were actual photos of community impact grant projects. And so this one on this page is actually a neighborhood beautification project where a development, an HOA down in Fort Washington built end-capped monuments as you enter their community. So that is a photograph of one of the end-capped monuments that was built with community impact grant matching funds, I should say. For an organization, for the, I'm sorry, not the organization, for the entryway of the HOA. So under neighborhood beautification, we've got streetscaping, street furniture, pedestrian enhancements, and recreational improvements. Signage to include banners and wayfinding systems, commercial facade improvements, internal and/or external improvements to commercial buildings used by the public, and permanent public art installations. And if we could, Monica, go back to slide 3. This is a great example of that permanent public art installation. This was actually on the left side of the page is the before picture. And on the right side of the page is the after picture. A mural was done. And this is actually, as you enter on Route 1, as you enter College Park, this is where that mural is displayed. And I think it's just, I think it's beautiful. So that is one example of a CIG project. Can we go back to slide 5? Thank you. Slide 5, yeah. And then other categories are environmental, natural resources, and sustainability, which includes restoration of parks, streams, and open space, urban agriculture, and replenishment of tree canopy, green roofs, low impact development and stormwater management, and preservation of historic landmarks, structures, and sites. And that concludes my presentation. I don't know if there were any questions, but there's my contact information on this page. And if anyone wants to reach out to me directly, please feel free to do so.
So we did see one question,
Okay.
501c19 groups.
Oh,
Are they eligible for CDBG?
for CIG.
I'm sorry, I got too many alphabets in my head.
I'm not familiar with those, so I would have to actually ask that question and probably have a conversation with our legal counsel, to find out if they are in fact eligible. I will make a note of that, and I'll respond to your office if that's okay, and then maybe you can get in touch directly with whoever is asking the question.
Sure. I also see another question, and I think it was directed to you. Are there opportunities for nonprofits to inherit or receive donation of a building or specific funding to secure a building? So I'm not 100% on that, but go for it.
Yeah, I that's outside of the purview of the community impact grant, so I can't answer that question.
Okay, well, we will see what we can do. And then another, my community association is seeking help from the county council, but should they also apply directly as a 501c3 for some of the things they want to do in their community?
Yes, they absolutely can.
Okay.
Our grants are, the notification of funds available typically goes out in the spring. So after the county council determines the budget and how much funding we're going to get, then, we will then make the announcements. So,
And how much is that this year? I should know that, but too
I
many.
know, well.
Oh, you don't know either, so don't feel bad. How much is
So-
it generally?
Yeah, I was
around?
gonna say, so typically, the RDA is awarded about $250,000
Oh,
in
okay,
community impact grant funds.
okay. All right, and you say the applications are available, when did you say?
So the notification will go out in the spring, between March and April.
Okay,
And
And-
and it stays open for about 6 weeks.
okay. And I see that Monica Young from my office has put in the chat the link to the webpage for the community impact grants.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to go back up in the questions because I want to make sure that I have that.
Which we'll send you anything
Okay,
supposed to go to you. It's not, are you talking about the 501c?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Casey, does that mean like a American Legion? Is that what the 19 is? Correct. Yes, so it would be something like the American Legion.
Okay,
Okay, we'll find out for you, Casey.
all righty.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thank
this is awesome, and we have ended on time. In fact, a couple of minutes early. So I want to thank everybody for being concise. And thank you all, the participants who spoke and everybody who signed up to be a part of this today. I don't know if you have more questions, but we're going to send out the link to this event, as well as all the information, all the presentations will be sent to our office, and then we'll send one email with all the information to everybody who signed up so that you can, kind of read it more at your leisure. You don't have to worry if you didn't get all the notes in or you copied something wrong. So thank you all. I see a few thank yous coming through. I appreciate you all. And everyone, try to stay cool and have an amazing day. Bye-bye.